Folks, today I got booker, promoter, matchmaker, referee, and now actor, James Beard. Welcome to the show. I'll throw this in here too, James. Today's episode is by the brand new book, Wrestle Black Bart, which did you get to contribute to this at all too?
Yeah, I actually wrote one of the forwards to it, gave a little information to Vinny when he was writing it. And when I got my copy of it last week, I kind of thumbed through a little bit. There's a chapter in there. The title of the chapter is James Beard and John Layfield. So I guess we got a featured part in there somewhere.
And I'll just ask you real quick, some memories of working with Black Bart?
Always a pleasure to work with Bart. I mean, he was always 100% professional. I mean, just you always knew his matches were going to be solid and they were going to make sense. And he was fun to work with on top of all that. I mean, he and I had a really good rapport in the ring. I mean, people probably thought we hated each other, but the truth is it was just a great working relationship. He understood how to work with me, and I understood how to work with him. And we got nose to nose a lot of times, but it was all to help him get heat. And he understood that, and he understood how to do that. And always so much fun to be in the ring with him.
We had an interview 3 years ago. For anyone who hasn't seen that or seen other stuff with you, tell people how you broke into the business.
I didn't really break in. I kind of got thrown in. I was playing music around the Dallas area, and over the years, I'd gotten to know some of the boys that come in here and there, and over time they'd talk to me, and eventually it got around to really some pretty in-depth discussions about wrestling and what I thought about it, and my growing up experience of watching it as a fan and that kind of thing, and some of them started thinking that I'd probably be maybe good at it, and Bruiser Brody had a lot to do with that. He pretty much just told me I was going to try it, and I ended up kind of sticking my toe in the water for a while, and then next thing I know, I'm in it full time, and had to make a choice. It's either stick with the music or do this, and I don't know if it was the wisest choice or not, but I did it, and here we are.
I think the last time we talked about this, we were talking about how there's similarities between the music and wrestling business, performing, working with crowds, and it's sometimes even the politics, I would imagine.
Yeah, the politics are very similar in a lot of ways. Neither one of them are your success is not always based on how much talent you have. A lot of it has to do with who you know and what positions you find yourself in and how you take advantage of that. And music and wrestling both are the same in that regard. But yeah, I was doing okay in music. I mean, my band was working for Chardon, which is Charlie Pride's company, and we opened for, good Lord, everybody you can think of that came through Texas. So it wasn't like it was just scrounging around or anything, but this came around, and I dabbled in it a little while, and I had some success and got to be in demand, I guess, and I finally said, well, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to see how it goes, and I here we are. 37 years later, and I'm still involved.
It's interesting to think too, like when you talk about Jimmy Hart, I think Mean Gene, Hulk Hogan, a lot of people went from music to wrestling.
Yeah, there's a lot of similarities. Like the performance part. It's wrestling is a team sport, and music a lot of times if you're in a band, it's the same thing. And my personal situation was different because in the music field, I was the lead singer and the guy out front, and in wrestling, I'm kind of the supporting actor. So it's a different role for me, but I enjoy it. And I never had a problem with being that.
We always talk about Texas wrestling. That's, I think, what most fans will know you synonymous with. What were maybe some of your favorite places to travel to?
Oh, well, I mean, in Texas, you mean, or everywhere?
Anywhere.
Everywhere. Well, obviously, Japan was my favorite. Worked over there for several years, and that really made my career for me. To be honest with you, it put me in a whole different light, no different situation. Not only there, but over here too. And back in those days, you had to be at the top of your game to even get a shot over there. And as far as I know, I'm the only referee that's ever actually been a part of a Japanese company. I mean, there's others that have gone over there and done shows, special events, and that kind of thing, but not as a member of the crew. And I've done that for 3 different organizations over there. So I'm very blessed with that. And that did a lot of good things for me over here in the States. So Japan really my favorite. I loved it. Loved working over there. I loved the style. I loved the way they treated the business, the media treated the business, the fans, and it was just a great situation. But I had a lot of opportunities to go a lot of different places, Europe, Singapore, and I mean, just name it. I've been there, and it's been really a great ride.
Being a part of the Iron Claw, I mean, it's fascinating, this career, it just keeps leading to things sometimes. And Japan, any particular good memories you can talk about?
Oh, God, all of them were great from the very first night. And what an experience. I really, when I first went over there, I really was thinking, this is just going to be a one-shot deal. And Kendo Nagasaki, or Kazu Sakurada is his real name, but he's the one that brought me over. And, I was thinking, this is just going to be a one-time opportunity. And at least I can say I worked in Japan, kind of pretty big deal in those days, especially in those days. And the first night, my first match over there, I thought I'm going over there working with all the American guys, right? And my first match were 2 Japanese guys, and neither one of them could speak English. And I had no idea what the finish was. It was a submission match. Kabuki said, submission finish. And I'm going like, well, who? He said, I don't know. Okay. Well, we got through it. The guy that won the match ended up with a broken jaw. It was hanging down way like here. Anyway, we got through that. And then the next couple of matches I did over there were, had some of the American guys with them involved. But the second night I was there, I got called into the office, and the owner of the company came up to me and shook my hand. He had $500 in yen, obviously, but shook my hand, and he said, Ichiban referee. And I went, I don't know what that means, but thank you. And then when we got my pay from Kabuki that night, he said, okay, you come back next month. And from there on, I was a regular. It was just it's just an incredible experience, to be over there and work. I would go over, do a tour, spend between that tour and the next tour in the training center working with the young guys. And then I'd come home for a little while and go back and do it again. It was just a wonderful thing.
Giving me stuff to think about. And I'm just thinking about Japan is known for a very physical style, hard hitting. And that was kind of Texas wrestling, especially back in the day too.
Exactly.
And it seems like whatever reason you kind of found yourself in the middle of like these very physical matches.
It was an absolute fit for me. I mean, the style over there was very similar to what we did in Texas, the Sportatorium and other places, and stuff that you can see through. Very, very tight work, and that's what I always enjoyed. So and that's the way I work as a referee. I was pretty aggressive when I needed to be. And I did that over there, and for some reason, it caught on. Most of the referees in Japan were very, I guess, laid back, a little bit less involved, and I had a little different style, and for some reason they liked that, and it worked well for me. The styles in Texas and Japan were very similar.
The last time we talked, you were involved with SWE Fury. And one of the things you were telling me, you were really promoting a time, it's a real kind of throwback Texas wrestling. And I'll be honest, I checked it out after that interview we did. Couldn't agree more. I didn't even know how to put my finger on it, but I'm like, man, this just has a feel to it. There was an angle where somebody was putting something in somebody's eyes, like a cleaning fluid or something, but it reminded me of those old school angles.
That was purposeful. That was exactly what I wanted to do. I had a lot of leeway when it started. We were doing really well, got a lot of notoriety. A lot of that was during the COVID time, and a lot of people weren't doing anything, and we were just cooking. We were drawing 700, 800, close to 1,000 people every time we went somewhere, which is pretty good for an independent. And,
sure.
And we ended up on some TV shows and had a lot of exposure that way, and it was just doing really well. It's really one of those real disappointments to me that it didn't continue. One of those situations where you hand some, I guess, power and stroke to the wrong people, and it went away within no time. It was a real disappointment to me, and something that almost got me to a point where I didn't want to do it anymore. In the last few months, I've gotten involved with a group called Texas Style Wrestling, and we're kind of picking up where SWE left off a little bit and starting to kind of mold it back into that kind of action, that kind of presentation, and I'm thinking that this may be a good opportunity to you're talking about picking up where you left off, kind of picking up where we left off and doing that again, and I think we're heading in the right direction with that.
It's interesting to say. I just want to point this out because, again, this pops in my mind, is you said you were drawing around COVID 700 to 1,000 close to it.
Yeah.
AEW Dynamite, this isn't a knock on them. Their show was low. They're a national team. They had a 2,100, I think, fans in Savannah, Georgia. You, as an independent in Texas during COVID, almost had half that of what a national television. That's pretty impressive when you put things like that.
Yeah, and it was consistent, and we were getting the kind of responses that you just mentioned, the kind of from real wrestling fans that wanted to see something that they could believe in and didn't have to be ashamed to watch. And I think there's a fan base out there that's yearning for that, has been for a long time. And that's always been one of my passions, to try to present that and try to be successful with something like that. And I don't care about competing with WWE or AEW or anybody else. I want to develop something that has its own fan base that real wrestling fans appreciate, and I think that's where that was my goal then, and that's my goal now. I'm not in any delusions that we're going to be the biggest thing in the business. I just think that there's a place for it, and that's what I want to do.
Some of the people I remember in just checking out Promotion, you see guys like Kevin Sullivan, Teddy Long, Mark. You worked with a lot of, going back to World Class, right?
Yep,
Fritz,
yep.
So many very creative people. Maybe you could tell me, because there's so many, who are some of the more creative and smart pro wrestling people you worked with?
Well, it goes all the way back to when I first started. Gary Hart. I learned so much from Gary. He's a guy I considered a mentor and obviously a very close friend as well. And there wasn't anybody much smarter than Gary. And so I learned a lot from him. And Skandar Akbar, another guy that you could always count on to let you know, if you're on the right track, if you're doing this the way it should be done and that kind of thing. I learned from Johnny Valentine was another mentor from me, and Red Bastine, who was one of the smartest guys I've ever been around. Those guys were incredible to have that kind of influence early on when I first started. And then, of course, working with guys like Eddie Gilbert later on, just amazing, amazing mind he had. And so many guys like that I've learned from and steal from and
Sure.
And still go back to sometimes, when I think of something and I got an idea, I say, well, what would they do? And I try to incorporate that into what I do now. And it's like having it's like having a bunch of Einsteins to teach you. That's the way it was for me. I'm just so blessed that I had those guys to learn from, and to not only just not necessarily just the creative side, but everything about the business. I tell people all the time that I learned more listening than I ever did in the ring. And it's still the case. And I think that's something that a lot of guys could probably learn something from is to keep their mouth shut and their ears open.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great life advice for people in general. It's funny. I was just talking to somebody. We were talking about the Rhodes family. And I was talking about Dustin and the particular time before, I remember when he was in Texas for a little bit too. And I remember him working with Gary Young early on, and he had a small bit in WWE. I said, what a time, despite the fact that you're Dusty's son, to get to work with guys in that time period. Larry Sabisco, Iron Anderson, Bobby Eaton, Rick Rude, future Steve Austin. And now you go down that list of all the people you worked with. Isn't timing crazy?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing when you think about it, all the people that came through here. And some of them, they got their start, in the Dallas area and Texas, and just having a little bit of something to do with some of them getting to, I guess, their big breaks and that kind of thing. I was talking to somebody the other day about all the guys that came through Sportatorium, whether it was World Class or USWA or Global, and so many that became big, huge stars that got their start right there. And being able to be a part of that, and in some cases being very involved in their early learning and that kind of thing. It's just mind blowing sometimes when you see how well some of them have done.
You said global, and one of the first things people don't realize, how stacked that talent base was in the beginning. But even towards the end, when they didn't have all the name talent, Booker T and Stevie Ray, a little team at the time called Ebony Experience, and the success Booker T has, it again started off in Global Wrestling Federation.
That's absolutely, yes, yeah. The JBL, Yeah, well, I mean, I just talked to John yesterday, and he's all those guys were just you could tell they were going to make it. It just
Right.
a matter of when, because they had the kind of desire and the drive to succeed and to learn and that kind of thing. It's fun to work with guys like that when you know that they're going to do everything they can to be successful. Steve Austin was the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many other guys that went through there that maybe not as huge a career as Steve or John or Booker, but were successful in the business in some way. And it's just it makes me really proud to know that I was around and had a little part with some of that.
As SWE Fury closed, I started seeing on my radar was with the Iron Claw movie, hearing about this stuff. You said in between, though, you thought about even stepping away for a while. Were you doing anything pro wrestling wise in between the Iron Claw movie and the closing of SWE Fury?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't super active, but I was still going out 2 or 3 times a month, and working a show or here or there. And I was working with some younger guys. I did some clinics. So I wasn't working with a group steadily until TSW called and asked me to start working with them. And when I started doing that, it was just kind of writing the format and then later they wanted me to get more involved in the creative side of things. And that's, that's some of the same guys. I mean, Jazz and Rodney Mack, two of my very close friends, are part of that. And Tim Storm also. So I was still in the business, but I wasn't as busy. In fact, there was a little period of time right after that happened with SWE that I really didn't want to do too much. I was kind of disgusted, to be honest with you. In fact, when I got the call about doing the Iron Claw, I was on my way to a show in Louisiana. I was going down there to work. I'd been working with a teaching group down there that Danny Davis, a friend of mine from Global, he's running a school, had about 20 students or so. And I'd been going down there about once a month and helping him some and working with those guys and trying to polish them up a little bit and that kind of thing. And I was on my way down there when I got that call. I was still doing things. I wasn't really trying to be as active. I was still involved in the Traeger Hall of Fame and CAC and that kind of thing. So, I was still sticking my toe in the business, but I wasn't really trying to do too much more.
What year was that? Did you get the call about the Iron Claw then?
Actually, Tim Storm called me first. He'd been talking to Luke Hawks, and they were working in NWA together. And Luke had been involved in several movies and TV shows and that kind of thing. And he was involved in casting of the Iron Claw. And he had asked Tim if he thought I might be interested in being a part of it. He thought that maybe having somebody who had actually been there, and been a part of that would be kind of interesting to have in the movie. I told Tim, I said, well, sure. I mean, I've known Luke a long time. I said, tell him to call me. And then he did. And he kind of gave me an idea of what they were doing. And the next thing I know, I'm getting vetted by A24, the studio. I tell people it's kind of like getting vetted for maybe a political job or something. You got to go through all kinds of stuff to get in. For them to say you're okay, that and SAG, they're the same way. And so I went through all of that, got that done. And when I showed up down there, the director, Sean Durkin, he was an old time wrestling fan. So he was aware of me and what I did and who I am. And they put me in the situation where I was able to help kind of guide some of the guys as far as telling this guy would do this way and this guy would do that way. And just kind of giving them some firsthand experience, And it was an incredible experience for me to be involved with that. And of course, you don't know what the movie's going to be like until you finally see the whole product. And when I get to go to the world premiere and see the final product, and I was very pleased with it. I mean, it's just an incredible movie. It's not, that people, a lot of people, wrestling folks and all they started clamoring about the casting and about, they left this out and they left that out, and the timelines aren't exactly the way things happen and all that. And that's true. That's the way it is. But
sure,
it's a movie. It's not a documentary.
Right.
And in order to do all the things people wanted them to do and include all the things and people they wanted them to include, you'd probably have to have an 8-part miniseries to do that,
Mm-hmm.
But I thought as a movie that's a little over 2 hours long, and the story that Sean was able to tell in that movie is just beautifully done. And the acting is first rate. I read a review yesterday from some big name reviewer. I don't keep up with all that too much. He was talking about the movies that should have been nominated for the Academy Award that weren't. And the Iron Claw was the first one he talked about. That's the kind of reviews we were getting. Great reviews from you movie people. So as a movie, I think it's incredible. If you want a documentary, then you're going to have to look somewhere else. But that's something I'm very proud of being a part of.
And you should be. I saw my girlfriend's daughter. She's not a pro wrestling fan. Yeah. And, she went on that ride. To her, Fritz was more the heel. She ends up, but she's actively not liking this, individual at this point. And she's very sympathetic to the character, the actor who played Mike. Yeah. I thought they did.
Unbelievable job, man. He was. If he and Zach, I think probably should have had some kind of recognition for sure.
That's what I was going to ask for you on this set. What were some things that maybe stood out?
I can't say enough about those guys. They had been training with Chavo Guerrero for a while before we even started shooting, and they kind of learned the basics. And I told them I've seen guys that's been training for 2 or 3 years that weren't even close to doing the things those guys were doing. And they were so committed to doing it right. Nothing cheesy about it. I think the wrestling scenes in this movie is probably the best that I've ever seen anywhere, and the most realistic. And that's because we did it real. Sean just told us, he said, I want it to be like a match. I want it to be the way you do it. Even to myself, initially I was just kind of being there and trying to be in the right place and that kind of thing. And he said, no, I want you to be you. I want you to, vocally, everything, the way you would handle a match, get in there and do it the same way. And that's what I did. And that's what they did. They nailed those things, and they were so easy to work with. I mean, so committed to making it right. Zach would ask me, would Kevin do this? And I'd say, no, he would do it like this, or he would be. Kevin was very aggressive, and I would tell him, look, you can't back off. You got to keep coming. And he worked it that way. And he was a joy to work with. All of them were. All the actors were just a blessing to work with.
How important do you think Chavo Guerrero was to this overall?
Oh, Chavo was. He's what made it what it was. I mean, he like I said, he trained the guys earlier before they ever started filming. And he put together the spots that we incorporated in the movie. And what he did is he tried to incorporate spots that were similar to what we did in real life back in the day. And so some of that stuff you saw in the movie actually is just pretty much how it happened back then. And I thought he did a magnificent job of putting all that together and directing it and making it look like it's supposed to look. Chavo was another one of the guys was a joy to work with. I'd known him before. Of course, I'd worked with all of his family before, and I'd worked with Chavo a couple other times, and Chavo Jr. I'm talking about, and he was just wonderful to work with. Hiro Koda, who was the stunt director of the movie, he was kind of there to try to keep us from killing each other. He did a great job of that too. We kind of bonded a little bit, after all the shooting was over with and everything. Chavo and Hiro and I all went out, just the three of us, and kind of had our own little private closing party, I guess. And those guys were just so much fun to work with and so easy to work with. Can't say enough about them.
Music, wrestling, and now later on in life, the Iron Claw. I'm not painting you as an older man. I don't want to do that.
But I think calling me a star in the movie is a little bit, maybe taking it a little too far. But,
well, not a star. I guess what I'm trying to say is I guess what I'm trying to say is being a part of this process. Where does this rank in your overall career in life?
Oh, it ranks right up at the top, man. I mean, I think all of us at some point in our lives, you kind of think, I'd like to be a movie star, I'd like to make a movie or whatever, and a lot of people think they can do it and really can't, kind of like wrestling, But to actually have that come about and happen at this stage of my life and career, Oh man, what a wonderful thing! I mean, when I saw my name up there in the
Mhm.
credits, I was like, wow.
Yeah.
This is a major motion picture, and I've got my name in the credits up there, and it was just it was incredible, and so it ranks right up there with all the honors. I've been fortunate to have a lot of honors in the last 10 or 12 years, and I'm very proud of all of those, and this is right up there with all of that. It means just as much. And I'll tell you, I've told this before in other interviews and things, but my last scene that I did was with the one with Flair and Kevin's match, and that was one of those deals that took all day long to film. They do it from all angles, and it's a slow process sometimes. But anyway, when we got through with that, that was that was going to be my last scene period. And I got out of the ring and I walked around to say, thank Sean for having me there. And when I walked around there and I started to say goodbye to him, he turned to the assistant director and told her to announce over the loudspeaker that this was my route. So she did that. And there was a big hand from the crew and everybody that was on set, which made me feel really good. And then I turned around to leave and Zach came back out of the dressing room and gave me a big hug and thanked me for helping him. But that's the kind of experience it was, and that moment, it meant a lot to me.
It's so happy to hear that. And honestly, it's almost like a Hall of Fame induction. It feels like a real stamp
Yeah,
on a tremendous career. Almost, it feels like.
yeah. Well, and like I said, I've had a few of those honors in the last few years,
Yeah.
and you're exactly right. It was on that level, absolutely.
Awesome, man. I love the passion out of your voice here, and I appreciate that. James, before I let you go, you're always gracious with your time. You're an excellent storyteller. Is there anything you want to promote?
Yeah, I mean, TSW is on streaming. You can find us there. We're starting, like I said, we're really getting that around to where it's not only named Texas Style Wrestling, but it's starting to represent that now, and it's kind of coming back around to that style that you referred to that SWE was known for. So we're working on that, and I'm pretty proud of where we're headed there. I mean, we still got work to do and some things to get in order, but we're opening up in a brand new high tech facility this next month. Very proud of that. I mean, it's going to be incredible. It's in a 40 school district, and which is just east of Dallas, in a building that holds the building we're going to be in holds about 600 people. It's a part of a larger facility. I think the large one holds like 8,000 or something like that. But it's a high tech school for teaching, for like media and that kind of thing. And so it's going to be something special when we get this thing all rolling there. And so I'm looking forward to that. So watch for us on streaming with the TSW. And of course, I'm still involved with Cauliflower Alley. And my real passion is the Traeger Hall of Fame, which is something I became a member and a part of a few years ago. And now I'm really very active in working with Jerry Briscoe, who's the head of that, and all those guys that put those things together. And we're July the 18th to the 20th. We'll be in Waterloo, Iowa at the Dan Gable Museum. If you want a special weekend, you'll see a lot of stars there and a chance to kind of be in a real intimate type situation. I'm very proud of that whole organization and everything that we're doing. And I'm really looking forward to this next one. It's our 25th anniversary, and I'm very proud of that. So, talk it up for us and try to be in Waterloo on July the 18th to the 20th. It's going to be great. The induction ceremonies got a bunch of activities on Thursday, the first night. Friday night there's going to be the induction, and Saturday night there's going to be matches, and it's a very special weekend. So come see us.
That's awesome, James. Thank you for your time, and you've been nothing but gracious. We